Hello, and welcome to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. I am so glad you are here with me. My name is Carrie Dahle, and I am your host. I am an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, manifester, and motivator. And I am on a mission to empower you to create the life of your dreams. If you are looking to up-level your life, relationships, finances, productivity, and success, you have come to the right place. I will share with you tools, resources, strategies, my failures, and my successes that have all helped me achieve the life of my dreams. It is my goal with this podcast to help you see your potential and empower you to create the life of your dreams. So let's get to it. Welcome back to the Thrive Mindset Podcast. Today we have Jana McKinney, who is with Get Living Wellness and Lifestyle Coaching. Jana has an extensive experience, which includes her bachelor's in exercise physiology from Utah State University. She's a certified personal trainer, a certified health coach, a certified lifestyle and weight loss consultant, and she practices shamanic breathwork, which is what we're here to talk to her about. Welcome, Jana.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think that breathwork is something a lot of people don't know much about. It's actually, I've known about it, but it's newer in my life and in my practice. So I'm super excited to talk about it.
Yeah, it seems to be a pretty newer, trendier thing. So people are hearing about it a lot, but they don't really know what it means. So
exactly. Well, do you want to start out with that? Do you want to explain what it even is?
Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's literally just doing different exercises using your breath, using different techniques of breathing, whether it's different paces or postures during breathing in and breathing out, and then different lengths of holding. And when we do that, it actually builds the muscles around our respiratory system. It makes us a better breather, breathing correctly. And then there's a whole host of other benefits, but that is the essential part. It is just doing work with your breath.
Yeah. So when you said breathing correctly, what exactly is that?
When we're first born, we are born with the correct breathing pattern, which is usually nice and slow inhales, nice and slow exhale, and little pause at the bottom, not a hold, but a pause. And then again, in, out, pause. And that breath is usually directed into the lower lobes of our lungs, which is made possible by the diaphragm, which is the muscle below your lungs. And that is the correct way, is breathing in down towards that diaphragm, letting it expand into your belly, and then exhaling on that in, out, hold pattern. And the normal for adults would be about 12 breaths per minute. So that's the correct way. But as we go through life, we have hardships, we have traumas, we have emotional reactions that don't get to be lived out and carried through, then we change our breath pattern. And so often people breathe into their chest, and the upper lobes of the lungs, and they will either do shallow breaths or too fast of breaths. And so breathing correctly is very important to our health and our minds.
So what does it change if somebody learns to breathe the way they should?
A whole host of benefits. Okay. So when we are breathing correctly, we actually are extending our life. If you look at the breathing patterns of all mammals, those that breathe slower and have deeper, slower breaths, like an elephant, live way longer than those who breathe short and quick. And so, like, let's say a mouse, they'll breathe like 150 breaths in a minute, and they only live a couple of years, as opposed to an elephant who breathes like 11 times and they live hundreds of years, right? Well, I think they live like 80. I'm exaggerating my numbers because I don't have them in front of me. But if you look at the continuum on a line, those animals, and we're right in there, the slower and deeper we breathe, we improve our lifespan. And that's because it improves our oxygen level. If we're getting enough oxygen in our body, then our organs and our body can work the way it was meant to work. We aren't living in a acidic state in our pH. And it's because oxygen when we breathe in oxygen, it actually alkalizes our body. So we can actually avoid diseases, viruses, bacterias. And besides just the physical, there's also huge mental health benefits as well.
Like?
all of them. So with your mental health, that's actually been tied to breath patterns. When you heal a breath pattern, you can actually heal depression, anxiety, PTSD. If you look at psychology journals, they are showing direct correlations between mental health and breath patterns. Or when I say breath patterns, the wrong breath patterns, okay? Mm. And so we can heal our bodies, we can heal our minds when we do breath work.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's exciting. I mean, it gives people a little bit more control over their lives if they just knew a little bit more about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a difference, in your opinion, on how, like, whether you're breathing through your nose or through your mouth?
Well, there's huge differences. When we breathe through our nose, that is actually the correct breathing pattern. We should most of the time be breathing through our nose because there's actual energy centers called nadis that end right at the opening of our nostrils. And so as we breathe in, we're actually helping balance our energetic flow. And then also through our nose is where the air gets warmed, it gets moisturized, and so it gets filtered. So breathing through your nose, for the most part, is the correct way. But during different breath work techniques, there are different reasons why we would breathe through our mouth just as a practice. But in your day-to-day, you want to go back to that nose breathing.
I think it was in a class. Maybe it's actually how we got connected. But she was talking about the breathing through the mouth puts you like in a upset state or anxious, or it just agitates you. Whereas when you're breathing through your nose, it's calmer, it's more relaxing.
Yeah. So breathing through our mouth is actually a sympathetic nervous system response. So think about when you go for a run, you often, especially if you're like having to do it out of panic or a sprint, you'll end up breathing through your mouth because you can get some oxygen quicker. That's a way to really get some air in there fast, but it literally is turning on our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight. Okay, so that, like you just said, it kind of is a way to excite the system, stress it out a little bit. And then when we breathe through our nose, that is actually turning on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest, that calming the nerves system through the nose. And so that's why different breath work techniques call for different things, because sometimes you really do want to excite that system to make it stronger, or you want to get a lot of oxygen so that we can really change the pH levels. And there's some different holotropic type styles that call for the mouth breathing to induce different states of consciousness as well.
Super fascinating, because I know in the times that I've been asked to breathe through my mouth for breath work, it is so hard for me. I'm always a nose breather. And so it just like, my mouth gets dry. I feel like I'm like gasping for air, like all these things. It's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely does. But the beautiful thing is if you're doing, depending on what type of breath work you do, because there are a whole bunch of different types, but if you're doing the one that's holotropic, where you're trying to induce a different state of consciousness for mental health healing, spiritual connection, things like that, then breathing through your mouth is uncomfortable for the first 10 minutes. But I say that with excitement, because after those 10 minutes, you get into a different state of consciousness and you don't notice that your mouth is dry. You don't notice that you've got to swallow and re-wet everything again, because you just get into a beautiful flow state.
Yeah, I can totally understand that and relate to that. But it is you're right, that first 10 minutes is, at least for me, it's very hard. And takes me like consciously thinking about, what am I doing? How am I breathing? Okay, it's okay. Just keep going.
Yeah, you have to kind of turn off that ego mind and push yourself through. And that's why I say breath work is like a workout, because for those first 10 minutes, you have to really be like, all right, I can do this. I'm strong. I can keep going. It's a workout, right? But it's not that hard of a workout. It's not as hard as sprinting. So I don't want to put it in relation here. But my friend and I, we came up with this math equation with talking about those first 10 minutes of work, because she is a shamanic guide that does like plant medicine journeys. And she has people saying, oh, I just want to do the plant medicine rather than breath work because it's easier. And she's like, I disagree. After she got into breath work and tried it out, she's like, it might be work, but it's only work for 10% of the time, those first 10 minutes. But then after that, you get into that flow state and it's not work anymore. And so she's like, if you can put in 100% of your efforts for 10% of the time, do the math. You get 1,000% benefits, right? So that's kind of my fun thing saying there is, put in 100% of your effort for those 10 minutes and you will get all the rewards, all the benefits. It's so worth it.
I love that you shared that, actually, because I have lots of friends who have always said, it'd be very interesting to try, an altered state for that purpose. And I constantly thinking, but I think you can do the same work and the same things with just your breath, which is amazing what our bodies can do.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, if you want to go into that part, there's so much beauty to comparing the plant medicine journeys and getting into that space, that altered state of consciousness that I talked about earlier. You can do the same thing with your breath, and it's safer. You are in complete control. When you decide you're done, you're done. You're not stuck in that state for 4 to 12 hours, like plant medicine, depending on which one you take. Once you're in it for 4 to 12 hours. Where breathwork, it's like, if you decide you've had enough or you're done, you're in control. You literally just stop doing the breath and you return back to a normal, beautiful, calm state. And then the other thing is, it also, besides being legal in every state right now, breathwork is legal in every state, where plant medicine is still getting there, right?
Yeah.
And there's definitely a place for everything. I think there's definitely a place for plant medicine, but it can only be done every month or space it out, maybe every 6 months if you're doing a big journey. Where breath work, you can do in between, or you can do it totally by itself. I say every 3 days if you're doing a big holotropic journey, like an hour-long breathwork journey where you are entering a different state of consciousness. You can do that every 3 days to a week, depending on what you want and how long it takes you to integrate and learn from the messages and learnings you got during that breathwork session.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I live in Oregon, so things are a little different here, right? We have more, plant medicine. Yeah, we have for a long time, but but more so legal and working with that now. But I am so pro just breath, just doing things that way and learning and growing and changing that way.
And I think it's important for us to maybe touch on, in case people don't understand how you're getting those same benefits during breathwork. And so when we do a holotropic breathwork journey, like the shamanic breathwork that I do is big on emotional release, and it helps you connect into the spiritual side of things, plus heal traumas. Like, there's so many beautiful things that happen when we get into this altered state of consciousness with breathwork. And the way it happens is our body naturally has a chemical called DMT, dimethyltryptamine. And that is a hormone, a chemical that basically helps us during times of stress to go, or when we're born, when we die. It helps us get into that. Yeah, it's like another level. It's basically like a hallucinogenic is what it is. And so it is the exact chemical makeup as what's in ayahuasca and is in psilocybin, but it's natural. It's in our bodies. So you don't have to take it from an external source, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when we are doing the breath after those first 10 minutes, because it is inducing, the over-oxygenation and the way it's affecting your nervous system, your body's like, oh, we need some DMT to help this process. And so it puts you in this different level of consciousness where you can then turn off the ego and actually be present in the moment, be present with your body, noticing where any energy is stuck, noticing where any emotions have been stuffed and kept for later, right? When we are in the state of consciousness, we can feel all of it again. Things that we've purposely tried to not feel that have then are now causing us mental health issues, causing chronic pain, causing diseases in our body. And so now that we know where they are, we can then release them. And you're in this beautiful state where it's okay to release. And your body is so wise when you're in this state of consciousness that it will release just the amount that you need and that you can handle in the moment. And so you have these beautiful emotional releases. You might cry, you might laugh, you might sing, you might just move your body in different ways. And not every single one of those different movements or noises or emotions are literally your body releasing stuck energy, releasing traumas. And it's all because of this state of consciousness that makes it so easy and so doable.
Wow. Our bodies are magic.
They really are. We just have to get out of the way and give them what they need so they can do their own healing.
Yeah. How has breathwork changed your life?
Oh, immensely. So I got into breathwork while I was in a rough marriage, very toxic marriage, very emotionally abusive. And as I was doing the breathwork, that relationship started to dissolve and it started to get very abusive, right? And so I was able to use the breath to be strong. When every single time I did breath work, I would get to this point where I felt like I had released everything that had happened and it gave me confidence to make the right decision. And so I was able to leave that situation. And that was just in the beginning of, my very beginnings. And then since then, I have used breath work religiously, almost like very on schedule. Like, I was doing it weekly, big sessions and journeys with my breath. And it has helped me heal my gut. So I had major gut issues, I believe, from the stress of that relationship, but I had ulcers. I was constantly blocked up, like big gut issues. And so I was healing my gut and doing breath work at the same time. And I now can eat any of the foods that I want to eat that used to cause major flare-ups, all because just doing the breath work, continuing down that path. And then it helped me also get out of the victim role, because after leaving that relationship and the abuse that happened, I had a concussion and major bruising all over my face and had to start over with $0, the whole like poor me mood that I was in for a while. I finally, when I started practicing regularly again, I was able to get out of that mindset of being the victim and turned into the victor. I used my learnings from each session to build my life better. I would leave a session with this big aha, like, oh my gosh, there's the answer I needed. This is what I need to do. And from there, I've been able to completely turn my life around with not only my mental health and my physical health, but also financially, because I would get these big, brilliant ideas when I do breath work. And even my relationship with my family and kids, I'll get little messages during breath work like, oh, here's what you could do, or here's what you can do. And it's just helped me be such a better person all around.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the stories help people relate. I think the stories help them understand what this is all about. And so sharing that is just beautiful. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
For somebody who's not done breath work before, where do they start?
I think it's best to start just doing simple practices and making sure that you are shifting your breath right into that natural, correct pattern again. And so there's a lot of different little pranayama type exercises you can start doing every day by yourself, maybe 5 minutes in the morning. That's the beginner place to start, because we don't know if somebody has any of the contraindications that a holotropic or intense journey would maybe allow or disallow them to do, right? But pranayama and those box breathing and alternate nostril breathing, those are beautiful ways that every single person on this earth, no matter what their health condition, no matter what their mental health is, they can start there. I do have a few of those lessons on my website if anyone's ever interested on just getting like a quick little beginner. But then if they want to go deeper, if they are healthy enough, they haven't had any strokes or aren't having current heart pain, then they can move on to some of these holotropic journeys like you and I were just talking about, the shamanic breathwork journey, because that's where the big, deep learning comes. That's where I feel a lot of the healing comes from, is some of these bigger journeys. And so that would be like step 2.
What types of, I don't know, do you call them classes? I don't know what you call them. Workshops, classes, I don't know. Breathing, exercise. What options are there?
So I call them classes, but there's definitely, a lot of people that will say it's more of an event because you are there for a while and it's not just you're learning, you are healing at the same time. But I teach classes every week. I have a couple different classes that you can do in person in Utah, but then I also do them live stream online as well. And then I have some pre-recorded journeys that you can do in the comfort of your own home anytime you want. Just turn it on, maybe some headphones, and have a comfortable space, maybe in your room or on your couch. And it's a beautiful way to really get in the flow and get that journey started.
Do you think it's just as effective doing it via online or by yourself?
I think I would say effective, yes, because you can do it more easily and more often when it's at your own home. You're not having to pay for it. Like the accessibility makes it so you can do it more often. And so that increases the effectiveness is by doing it more often. But there is some real beauty, some real energy that is just tangible during a group session. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't done it in a group class, then try it for sure. But if there's any reason why it's like, okay, that's too hard to get out to, then do it online or do it in your own home. And the beautiful part about breathwork, and what I just want to scream from the rooftops, is that you are your own healer. So once you learn how to do this, you can do it by yourself in your own home to be able to heal yourself. And it puts the power in your own hands, really, because you have your own breath, you have the tools. So learning from online or learning in a group class is a great way to get the knowledge. But once you've got that knowledge, you can heal yourself.
I love that. Love it. If you were to give one piece of advice about breathwork, what would you give?
That's hard. I have a lot of it. But really, I would say to make it a daily practice, because we have daily stress. And so our bodies will naturally be causing tension in different areas and changing up our breath pattern on the daily, right? And that's not even talking about if there's a traumatic event or a large stressor in your life that's causing disease because of, energy buildup and tension. And so if that's my one advice, if that's all I'm allowed, like start practicing daily. And part of that is adding in a journey at least once a month. So that holotropic, that longer session once a month to really kind of dig down and release any old stuck traumas and emotions.
Yeah, that's good. And you have more, don't worry, I promise. But I just was curious what your
like
one would be. I mean,
it's that daily practice.
Yeah. And for those that seriously have no clue, I mean, I'm a beginner at this one too. Breathwork is definitely newer for me. I'm very much enjoying it. But the one thing I've found that just kind of centers me for my day is just sitting with my eyes closed and breathing in through my nose and imagining like the air coming up my back and then blowing it back out through my mouth and imagining it coming back down, and just kind of doing this circle in my head of just doing that for about 5 minutes. And, whether that's right or wrong, that seems to just kind of center me. Or if I'm stressed, it just kind of calms me down, which, my feeling is find what works for you. With the very first breathwork it was very unusual way of breathing. I mean, it was mouth, but it was also like in, out. And it was, this pattern that was it honestly, I had a very hard time getting out of my head to even get there. the next time I did it, it was more just an in and out. So it wasn't, I mean, it was still the deepness, right? It was still down into your diaphragm, but, and then like the first 3 times were your mouth, and then the next 3 were your nose. But, I mean, I guess it's whatever works for you. I mean, everybody's probably different, right?
Yeah. Well, if you're talking daily practice, definitely finding something that you feel is challenging but also soothing. Okay. So with the daily practice, why I think it's so important is obviously it's going to help calm your nerves and kind of get you into that like grounded, calm space again. But we want to build the muscles and the strength of your lungs so that you are breathing correctly when you're not thinking about it. Right. And so definitely finding something that works for you with the thought of also, is it a little bit challenging? Okay. So adding in something a little challenging here and there to just continue that strength building, right? But the one that you talked about, it's called the Sufi breath, where it's in, out, into your belly, into your chest, then exhale. And that's definitely a good one for those holotropic journeys that I recommend doing maybe once a week or once a month. But yeah, if you did that daily, you would only be able to do it for a few minutes before you started to get lightheaded and, go into that journey space.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure with practice, it gets easier.
Yes.
But for me, it was very hard to get out of my head in the beginning. Very hard. Because I just kept focusing on, oh my gosh, I can't I can't breathe right.
I can't do this. Yeah. Yep. And the more you do it, then the better you get. And it's literally just like we were saying earlier, it's building the strength in the diaphragm, building the strength in even just like the intercostals, the little muscles between your ribs. As you build the flexibility and strength there, those will get easier.
Well, is there anything else that you have on your heart or you feel like is important to share? I mean, I know I just limited you to 1 a minute ago, but now is your turn.
You're so great. So I feel like maybe a lot of people don't realize how trauma, and even if it's not a big traumatic event that society would call trauma, it could be something as small as like maybe not fitting in with your family, like being the black sheep, even though you're well loved. It's like, I'm different. Or it could be you got teased on a playground, or maybe you tripped over a log and no one even saw it, but it was traumatic for you, right? So whether they're these big or small traumas, they get stuck in our body. And it literally causes a energy blockage that will then cause a disease state, whether it's chronic pain or gut issues or bladder, someone who gets bladder infections often, or maybe they're getting TMJ. Like these different ailments in our body are caused by this restricted energy from these events that happen in our life. And it's because we get that fight or flight response that happens in the moment. And we get this nerve impulse to act on it. It's like, oh, I've got to run, or I've got to fight back, or whatever that response is. It gets stopped because maybe society says you can't fight, or you can't cry, or you can't yell. So we hold these feelings and emotions in our body as tension and stuck energy. And that's when we get sick, right? The beautiful thing about breathwork is it releases that stuck energy. And that's like the key point of why we want to be doing breathwork, is being able to heal the body, release those traumas so that we can have health and longevity in our lives. And obviously the mental health that comes along with getting rid of that stuck energy as well.
Yeah. So, who doesn't want all of that?
Yeah, we all do. And we all deserve it. And we all have the power within us because we were born with breath. We've just got to let it be what it was meant to be. And that's where health belongs, is in the breath.
I think it was in Jay Shetty's book, Live Like a Monk, that he talked about when he very first got to the monastery, that there was a little boy, a little boy meaning like 10, 11, teaching other people. And he's like, well, what were you teaching? He goes, it was the first day of school. And he goes, well, what were they learning? He goes, breath. What did you learn your first day of school? And he goes, well, like the ABCs, but it was interesting that breath and breathing was the first thing that they teach.
Yeah. And it should be. And it's like, now that we're realizing this on the Western cultures, it's like the Eastern's known this for a long time, but now we're realizing this in our Western culture, it should be and could be one of the first things that we teach. And, my dad just barely on the phone yesterday said, I heard the darndest thing the other day. And I was like, what was it? He's like, I saw an article that breath work was good for kids. I was like, of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, personal story is my kids, when things were kind of up in the air and we were living with family, they were getting tummy aches all the time. And I taught them how to just do the simple belly breath, just expanding that belly, and their tummy aches before school every morning went away. They've learned as children to breathe correctly so that they don't have as much anxiety and stress. Because right now, the way school is and the way the culture keeps pushing our children, it is stressful. And it's different than maybe what they were designed to do. And so they deserve to have breath work. They deserve to learn this at an early age so that they can thrive through life.
Yeah. Yeah, we all do. But gosh, I mean, what a world it would be if our children all learned that in school.
Yeah. Well, I have a strong belief that all of humanity, like all of our communities, would be so much better off if we learned breath work, because if we can heal our own pains, if we're not having chronic pain, if we're not diseased, then we feel better. We're less likely to be grumpy. And then as we actually let go of old traumas, not saying to, forget, but to let go of the actual tension and the pain that's causing us, as we release that from our physical body, we feel better. We are kinder. We relate better with others. And so I know it's a bold statement, but I'm like, breathwork can heal this humanity. It can heal our communities as well.
That's powerful. And I love it. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for all you're doing. And thank you for sharing today. And I just appreciated the chat. It was really great to have you.
Yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share it. That's what I'm all about, is sharing breathwork however I can.
Wow. And I will absolutely be sharing your website in the link below. And thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
What an amazing chat with Jana today. If you have questions or you want to know more about breathwork, I suggest you check out her website, which I have linked in the comments below. And in the meantime, remember that I believe in you and you can manifest the life of your dreams.